After 3 months of diligence and learning, I did it. As a designer who invests a lot of time in developing skills and constant improvement, this was one of the scariest challenges I've taken on in recent years, learning to create games in Unity. It didn't just happen. I felt like I had to take a course in C# and Unity to get a good start. Everything was under my responsibility: art, animations, and of course development and game design. But I must say that mainly in the development process, I got a lot of help from the people around me, from tutorials on YouTube, and yes, also a little bit from ChatGPT. Before I started the development or design process, I had an idea: a dark forest that becomes illuminated by fireflies that accompany the character. At this point, I started thinking about the story of the game's main character. Who is the character? Where does he come from? And what is her relationship with the forest? I thought about it a lot, and I came up with a story about a creature called Luma. The Luma lives in a dark forest, and on its head is a flower that attracts fireflies that emit light. The fireflies feed on the flower's nectar, and in return, the Luma can see and thus survive in the dark forest. A real mutual relationship. This mechanic is not the main mechanic of the game, but I think it helps make the game special in a world full of platform games. It was not easy to create this idea. In fact, it's the only script in the game that I wrote entirely using AI. The work was with ChatGPT. In each attempt, I inserted an additional request into the chat that turns the simple objects I created into fireflies that follow the player, make a hovering movement, and fly at the press of a button to the angle I want, at the speed I want, and the distance I want. After I created one firefly, I duplicated it 8 times, and each firefly was given different settings so that their hovering would appear random. My references for the game design were the games I grew up with, like Crash Bandicoot or Captain Claw. Above all, there is one game that inspired me for the player's double jump. Remember Rayman? I knew that the player's hovering could be a really cool addition to Luma, so it was important for me to add this mechanic to the player's movement. I had 2 options for hovering. What do you think is the best option? I am very proud of the player's movement that I created. Not only because it looks and feels fun, it is also code that I built myself through many attempts independently, with the help of tutorials on YouTube, and also with help from coworkers. Another thing I'm proud of is the enemies in the game. It was very challenging to develop the enemies, but I did it with the help of YouTube tutorials and a lot of creativity. There are 3 ways to die in the game: the spiders, the bats, and the spikes. The movement of each spider is based on 2 points that I created within the level. These 2 points are the limits to which it can go. If the player gets close to the spider can attack the player and take away life from his health bar. In contrast to the spider, the bat does not move and waits for its prey with a bait in the form of a pickable. If the player eats the bait, he will automatically be eliminated and reach the last checkpoint. The spikes are a static obstacle but very dangerous. Similar to the bat, if the player touches the spikes, he will automatically return to the last checkpoint. Other mechanics in the level design include the mushrooms that allow the player to jump higher, the ropes that allow the player to climb, the platforms that are placed in the air, the moth-shaped checkpoints, and the magical tree that allows the player to advance to the next level. Each such object is a significant part of the level design and game design. Although there are only 2 levels in the game right now, it was important to me to design the game so that the beginning would be very easy and without risks, and as the player progresses, the game would become more difficult. At each level, the player would be exposed to new and surprising mechanics of the game. Due to time constraints, I could not add a FATU to the game. For those who don't know, FATU is a first-time user experience, a kind of tutorial so that the player understands what to do. To solve this, I added signs that guide the player on what to press, what to watch out for, and where to go. One of the best compliments I received in the game was on the 2nd level, the moment when the player has to take a big jump to get over the spikes. A lot of people told me that they had a bit of a hard time there, and it took a few tries to get through the challenge. As a game designer, there is no greater compliment than that what you wanted the player to experience happened. Let's talk about the UI in the game. Although my main profession is game UI design, I left the UI for last. I didn't have a lot of time to design the UI myself, but I had a vision for how this thing should look. To make the vision a reality, I used ChatGPT again, and from the design of a button within a pop-up frame, I turned the result into an interesting and unique graphic language that includes buttons with text, buttons with an icon, and a cool moth UI for the health bar. Because of my background as a designer in the game industry, it was easy for me to organize my workflow. The clock was ticking, so I tried to stay focused as much as possible and invest in the most important things first, and only then work on less important things. It may sound obvious, but with an engine like Unity, it's very easy to get distracted. Every day I had 1 or 2 tasks, and on weekends, I was ready to go to war. The game is not perfect. There are only 2 levels, and there are also some bugs that I would like to fix. For example, the rope climbing, the transition between levels, and the animations when the player dies. But I always put it on the table that this is my first game, and the time limits were really crazy. Finishing the first game is just the beginning. I learned so much about Unity in this project, and more than that, I learned a lot about myself. I really enjoyed the creative process, and I really enjoy sharing my experiences with you. I would like to take this opportunity to mention that I am currently working on my next game. I have no external time constraints that will affect my work, but here too, I will try to be as productive as possible. If you like the game and the video, I would be happy if you click the like button and subscribe to the channel. By the way, you can play the game using the link in the description. See you in the next video.